Good day, everyone. As promised, an afternoon show on this lovely Wednesday, May the 22nd. And a fun one coming up here, as I'll be joined by my good buddy, Josh Lloyd, in just a couple of minutes. And we'll be getting into his top lesson learned from this just completed fantasy season. I am, of course, Dan Vespers, and this is Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball, founding show of the Old Man Squad Sports Network, but not the only show, as we are launching multiple other shows this week. So please stay tuned to @OldManSquad on Twitter for information on that. I am @Dan Vespers over on social media. Thank you to everybody that has reached out to be a part of this. Thank you to everybody that's reached out to subscribe and do all those really awesome things. It's been very fun to see how many of you have been kind of tethered to me in whatever I've been doing these days. And that is, I don't know, it's freaking flattering, honestly. But also I am very grateful. I know there were all these years where I used to give LeBron crap, obviously not face-to-face because I don't know LeBron, but he used to say that he was humbled by a lot of things. You remember early in his career, he kept talking about how humbled he was. And I wasn't sure that he fully understood like what that was conveying. I have been humbled here by my own decisions to start something brand new from scratch, but then also at how many of you that have come along and helped spread the word and subscribed and retweeted and liked and all those things that you could do to kind of help me grow a thing just out of the goodness of your heart. So thank you for all of that. Should have a fun time here coming up. Again, I want to get to the interview here as fast as I can, but I do want to let you guys know that because of the interviews now, we'll take a brief pause on looking at the Old Man Squad. We'll probably get back into that, I would think, first thing next week, given how timing goes, just if you're trying to plan that out in your head. We got a lot of things to go over during the offseason. Draft is not all that far away. We'll have guests on to talk about that because y'all know me and young basketball players. But I think at this point, without further ado, what I'm going to do here, by the way, pulling back the curtain, the interview with Josh was actually taped about an hour ago. I'm going to just play that interview for you guys here. It'll seem like it's happening in real time, but shh, don't tell anyone. It's actually not. So here is our chat with my good pal, Mr. Josh Lloyd. This makes sense. This is something that folks had asked for, and now I am very happy to deliver upon it. And it's going to be regularly. Josh is going to be annoyed with me with most likely how many times I ask him to come and talk about random fantasy crap on a show. But whatever. I think that's a good problem for me to have. The great Josh Lloyd, ladies and gentlemen, Red Rock _B-ball of Locked On Fantasy Basketball, Basketball Monster of many of our dreams and nightmares. Josh, what's going on, man?
Daniel, is good to be here. Good to be gracing the airwaves of the Old Man Squad.
The Old Man Squad. Listen, it had to be this. I think I thought about the name Podcast Utopia, but that felt really contrived and weird. So this, I thought, fit a lot better. And I know you liked the graphic because it had the silly 2020 COVID draft board in the background.
Yeah,
so
it was fantastic. I loved it. I loved it. I loved that it was so subtle that not everyone would know that it was there, but it was just sitting there, no names, slight colorations on the little things. Okay, what's funny to you? I know it's funny to me. That's probably funny to me, but this is a bit self-indulgent. But that's funny, or the fact that like that people think that we have this real life beef when when people say, come on your show, I go, get this guy off my show. But man, don't you guys talk to each other? It's like keeping that bit going is like, it's very humorous to me. And Yeah, so I'm here out of spite. This is court ordered. And I'm here just to talk to you because I'm forced to.
The thing that always, so you're better at the bit than I am. When someone inevitably one person responds, like, "What's going on with this? Like, do you guys actually hate each other?" And I feel so bad about it that I always reply to that one guy who's like, "Nah, man, we're screwing with you. You need to be aware of this." Because, like, yes, obviously, we don't go on each other's shows just to be dicks to each other. But it is.
Well, mate, we'll see. Not yet. Not yet.
If it happens, it'll happen on its own. I thought it'd be fun to talk to Josh just about a season gone by. Right now, it's weird for me to have started a new show and be like a week and a half into it because I don't know what's reasonable for me to talk about that was like on the old feed. But I'm assuming most people that are listening to this show were people that listened to the old one. So I just kind of launched like headstrong into whatever fantasy crap was at the top of my head. But Josh, what was... Oh, you know what? Before we even get into that, Josh, you're into baseball all of a sudden. I'm tickled pink by this. What's the story there?
I think last time I had you on my show, we talked minor league hats. I got a new collection. I got like 5 new ones in front of me, which I'll show you in a second. But what happened? My son just got massively into baseball. So like last year, his birthday's in August, and he he'd sort of gotten into it a little bit, and he's a Padres fan. He was watching, especially through their NLCS run the year before. And then like last year for his birthday, he goes, "Oh, I want a bat." He was turning 16. He's like, "Oh, I want a baseball bat." I go, "Okay, fine, I'll buy you a bat." And he goes, "Oh, which one?" So he sent it to me. He got that. And then we just would go down to the park and was hitting it. It was like, he just wants to go and hit all the time. And then we were down near the local club, and there's not many clubs around here. Honestly, it's hardly any. So we're just down there because there's space to hit. And one of the guys from the club comes over, goes, "Oh, you play?" He's like, "Nah." He goes, "Oh, you should come down and play." So, okay. So, he's getting scouted from the park. So he goes down there, finishes off that season, the last 4 weeks just with training. And now he's playing under 17s. He's playing seniors. He played 3 games last weekend. So it's baseball all the time. It's like, "Oh, should we go out and buy this?" And so now I'm going to become a catcher. It's like, so I have to get involved. Oh, no. Oh my God. So it's got to talk baseball all the time. I've got to learn all these players. I just banged out a full season of MLB The Show franchise mode. Just finished 162 games straight. This is how I'm feeling in my off season, learning this new sport. So I'm ready to go, and I'll show you my hats in a sec. What have I got here? I got this. What's on here? The Capuchitos. Got that one.
I don't even know what that is.
It's Spokane, but they're Copa La Division.
Oh, right. They were the Indians, and they probably changed the name. Oh, got it.
Got my Chihuahuas.
Yeah.
I've got my Fort Wayne. My Fort Wayne.
The tin caps.
That's the Luchador one, and then I've got this is my favorite one. The San Antonio Flying Chunklers. Got that, and then there's another Chihuahuas one there as well. But that's So I got a bunch. I've got all the Padres affiliates. I've got the Storm one downstairs as well. So that's my.
I too have a Storm hat floating around in some closet. One of our shows, we're gonna both just have to wear a Storm hat. That's probably the overlap there.
Yeah, it is. I've got the other one I've got that I really like is the Winston-Salem Dash. I got their hat as well, but then I got their rebranded one where they rebranded to the Hype Hens. So I've got that one too. That's probably my favorite one, but that's downstairs.
The hat that I really liked that I basically sweated through was the Montgomery Biscuits.
Oh yeah, the biscuits.
I loved the butter tongue.
There's so many. It's so funny. I love them all. They're all just hilarious to me. I love how there's, and then when they just chuck in, we're going to wear this one for 3 games here. And it's like, okay, what is this? Oh, it's like a local ice cream flavor. All right, cool, whatever. Like,
yeah, great.
That's great.
I have nearby because my kid was on the Cannonballers for Little League last year.
Oh yeah,
which I think is Kannapolis. They used to be the Intimidators. Yep. I'm going to do the like Letterman bit and just throw it off to the side of the screen here.
I'm always trying to remember, like, I as much as I'm learning baseball, I don't really know all 5 affiliates for every team. The Cannonballs.
No, nor should you. I have no idea who the Cannonballers are.
I did know this though. I think
are they a White Sox team at one point?
Oh well, I know Winston-Salem is the White Sox. They might be. There might be the AA White Sox. I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, please. I'm out of the loop.
Let's have a look. Kannapolis. Cannonballers. It is the White Sox single A.
Hey.
It's below the Winston-Salem Dash. So all you White Sox fans out here talking A ball, we got you.
We got you, man. Cannonballers. Asher was a I'm so thrilled that you're into baseball. And I mean, your kid is 9 years older than mine, but this is a heartwarming moment for me to see you diving into baseball so hard. Okay, now we can talk fantasy basketball because Lord knows, I think I probably just earned my first 1-star review on the new show by not talking fantasy sports for 6 minutes there. Josh, what was a key lesson you took away from this year? What was different about this 2023-24 campaign?
What was different? I think a lot of the approach that I tried to have this season, heading into the season, I think it bared out a little bit as well, is that really we talk about, moves and safety plays and all that sort of stuff, but getting the success, and so much you hear about the guys, it's like the guy that you took in the last 2-3 rounds that jumped up into the top 50. So there's no point to me, and I sort of had this idea in the preseason, but taking like a guy who's, what best case scenario is the 120th best player in a 12 team, like who cares? I'd rather take a Jalen Johnson, Kobe White. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
I believe you and I destroyed poor Harrison Barnes in a show we did before.
Yeah,
this season.
Him, Kevin Herter, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope fits into that for me as well. Just like these sort of guys, it's like they if they're sitting on your waiver wire and you want to add them because the schedule makes sense, like absolutely go for it. Like it's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But a pick on that gives you absolutely no return. And then because they're just good enough, you hold on to them and go, well, I can't drop him because he's 130th and I've got 150 players rostered, and that's good enough to hold on to. But in the end, that doesn't matter. Like that's not the key to having that win. It's about like, if I need to drop that guy and get someone because maybe he's be out. Look, for me, like I was like big on, I watched Taylor Horton Tucker play. I'm like, this bloke cannot play basketball. Like this is not going to stay. Like Keontae George is going to take this job. So I'll grab Keontae George and I grab him in a lot of leagues. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? If he's not good or if he struggles, I move on. But holding on to someone whose best case is the 11th round player, because I say, oh, but maybe Keontae sucks. Oh, well, if he sucks, he sucks. Like I just want to get that guy. And if you accumulate 2 to 3 or 4 of those guys who blow up, then you're there. Like, it's like grabbing Isaiah Hartenstein, even though like Jericho Sims started. You go, I know Jericho Sims is bad, and I know Hartenstein is good. So I'll grab him and let's just see what happens. You've got to go and add him. And you do, and then you see where it goes. So just taking that chance and going the back end of your roster, it's for experiments, it's for volume, it's for just seeing what happens at this point. Because another part of it, Dan, I'll leave it at that. I've got another lesson, but I'll leave it at that. So
I think I think this is one of the spots. You and I play fantasy sports pretty differently, but this is an area where you and I see almost exactly eye to eye. There is no point, especially as a Roto Games Cap guy, plugging in a game of Harrison Barnes is fully useless. I'm going to just continue to rail on poor Harrison Barnes because
go ahead.
But like, there's no point in that. He's not going to help you advance your cause. He just fills in a gap in a game's played, basically. And it's similar with head-to-head. There's it's actually slightly more valuable in head-to-head because at least you're not taking a 0. Like, they're better than an injury. Whereas in a games cap, the injured guy is probably still better than playing a game of one of these sort of low-tide guys. But also, what you're talking about, not only does, if you don't screw up the beginning of your draft and you get a few of those late big jumpers, you're like top 3 basically without almost doing anything else. If you do screw up the beginning of your draft, these are the kind of guys that can kind of rescue your team as the season goes. They're big impact dudes. And this is the thing that is going to surprise a lot of people. It's more fun to rotate these guys at the end of your bench as opposed to just sitting and doing nothing for months on end with poor Harrison Barnes on your team. There is, like, fantasy has to be entertaining. As much as I like to sort of like really take the shine off in the way that I play it, I am kind of a roster churn guy secretly. So yeah, I mean, I wanted to play devil's advocate on some of this stuff, but I don't know that I can in this one because there's really no arguing that side. I guess the question then, if I was going to hit you with a follow-up, is what's the best way to isolate a player like this? What's the best way to look for someone who has that kind of an opportunity to jump?
I think part of the way you look at that's got to be part of the way you play the game. So if you're talking about a head-to-head situation, like the majority of the time, Dan, you know this. I know you play majority roto, but you know what's going on in head-to-head is like volume is where it's at, right? So like it's about volume. So if you get in there and you beat your opponent with 7 extra games, and then you end up losing turnovers, like, okay, that means you've just gained more stats in other areas. Like that's what it's about. It's about just getting more stuff in. So it's about, to me, like my rule this season was like, hey, if I've got a starting point guard who's a high to above average to high usage player, they don't come around all the time. Like And yes, they might have some bad shooting nights, but that's the guy I will take the chance on. That is why I will hold on to Kobe White, just because it's a 30-minute plus starting point guard with 25-ish usage, who can score, who can pass, who can get some threes. It might not work out all the time, and I know there's going to be hits. That's why I'll take that flyer on Keontae George. That's why, yeah, Scoot's getting 10 assists. I'll try that, and I'll see what happens. It might hurt me in other areas, but my team is usually in a head-to-head situation built up to deal with those negatives because I understand the volume equation in a head-to-head format means that you have to sacrifice some things there. So that sort of idea of like high usage guard, starting guard, they don't exist everywhere. There's not 30 of them for a start off. And if you get enough of those, you can just accumulate enough in these other areas, especially when we're talking volume through a week for it to make sense. It's not going to work for everybody, and your team's got to sort of make sense around that. But that is just versus a guy that might come in as the starting small forward on my team got hurt. So what about the backup who comes in and plays 25 minutes across positions and has 9 points, but look, he got like a steal. Like, okay, but that one steal in the scheme of things, and that was one of my other lessons, is, Dan, we look at head-to-head because the game started with Roto, right? Is that everything is built out of Roto, rankings, approach, all that sort of stuff. So we look at it and go, yeah, but if you average one steal a game, that's what average for the season. Okay, but that's great and all, but over the course of the week, if this guy plays 3 games instead of 4, if someone has a random game where he gets 5 steals and then he has 0 for the next 5 games, it doesn't matter. In that 1 week, you lost, even though that guy is the 75th best player in steals. Getting 1 a game doesn't mean that you're going to get 1 every single game, and then you can still get beaten, coin flip amount of times.
I wanted to ask, and I felt like I needed to go back and set the stage a little bit. Josh, you set up some games capped head-to-head leagues this year. I have 2 questions on that. Question number 1 is going to segue into question number 2. Question number 1 is, how'd it go?
I think they were really good, honestly. I'll go and find. I did a survey of the people who were part of them because we had I think we had 1,000 people or 1,000 teams across the leagues. Now, not everyone responded to the survey. That's what you get. I think we had 20%, or 284 people responded to seeing how it was. Now, for me, how did it go? Like, awesome. Like, I thought it went. I thought it went really well. But in terms of the responses from people, it was like 80% approval to basically anything that I brought in. Now, there's always going to be someone going, oh, but streaming's part of basketball, fantasy basketball. And my response to that is, you only think that is because that's what you've done. Like, there's no reason. There's no reason it has to be. Like, it doesn't have to be. Like, well, churning the waiver wire is what it's all about. It's only what it's all about because that's what it's been. There's literally no reason that has to be the case.
And you can still churn. You're just looking for an upside guy instead of a guy who's playing 3 times.
What I did was a number of things. I increased the bench size a little bit, so you didn't necessarily have to get, because I always find those situations, well, it means that you got to come into a hard decision of dropping a really good player. I go, you know what that does? If you're in a situation where you've got to drop a really good player because they're injured, that means that your team's struggling with multiple injuries, and it means the team that isn't struggling with injuries, who's at the top of the standings, can grab that injured guy, sit on him, and widen the gap in the league. And to me, what's the point of that? Like that makes it less competitive. Whereas, like, if you're talking about a real life team, like the Sixers didn't have to go and drop Joel Embiid because Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris got hurt for 2 weeks. Well, Embiid's going to be out for 4 weeks. I better move on. Like, you just hold on to him, and then hopefully when they come back, you're able to compete. And because then the guy who was sitting at the top 10 games clear with no injuries can just go and add him and go, thanks, I'll have him when he comes back, and then we're good to go and the season's over and you're not going to be able to compete with that person. So adding all these different little factors in, I think it worked out really well. There's always going to be the traditionalist who's like against it because it's not what they've done, or their strategy of winning has always just been, well, I'm just win because I know the schedule and I get more games in. I go, okay, well, we're just got to do something different. But in terms of solving some of the problems that arise, I think it was extremely successful.
That's fantastic. My second question on that, and by the way, I did really want to be in that, but the drafts were right in the middle of Asher's Little League, actually. As it turns out, we can bring this discussion full circle. Did that change the way that you strategized for a head-to-head? Did it change the way you attacked certain things? Because now, if you're not attacking volume as hard, potentially, if you're not trying to maximize games played as much, were you able to attack categories that on a previous year maybe you didn't? Or am I galaxy braining this a little too much?
honestly, that sort of system that we had this year is obviously new, so I haven't had years to sort of hone down on the strategy, but this is the way that I sort of approached it. Yeah, look, it does change strategy because you're not going, well, this guy's got 4 games, so I'm going to go and add him. It
Right.
became more important as to when the games were played. Like, will I actually play this game? This guy, is that worthwhile? Is it a week where there is just more games in general in the league, or is it a low volume week for the entire league? That becomes more important. Is it a week where there is 10 teams playing 4 or 25 teams playing 4? Because that changes the importance of those back end players. But in terms of, like, we can say that and go, well, you can't just bludgeon volume through to get these extra games to get more points or more assists through because everyone plays the same. So do you focus on the other things? And my initial thought on that is not really, because those lower volume stats, like we talk steals and blocks, to a smaller extent threes, and honestly free throw percentage can be a little bit of a small volume stat because you're dealing with three attempts per game per person. It's really small. Is that in a situation where you've got a set number of games that are played, you don't have that advantage to, like, well, I need steals, I'm going to go add these 4 guys and get the extra ones in. So if someone has a down week and, like, steals, and these are all binary things, so you might average 0.7 or 1.2, but you can only get 1 or 0. You can't get 0.2, you can't get 0.3 during the week. So that releases the situation where those stats become more variable, I found, because you can't actually move into the situation where you can make up for it and go, well, I'm just going to grab 4 steal guys in my 4 slots on Sunday and add that guy in. It's like you are
fewer games would mean more wider fluctuations,
more variance, less ability to manipulate those categories. Whereas the higher volume, more stable, less variable stats, if I'm focusing on those and feel more confident in winning those each week, then that goes a long way. Whereas the other categories can become a little bit more coin flippy. So on the surface, it seems like you would be like, well, now I don't have this streaming thing, so I can maybe focus a little bit on the other ones. They become a little bit more a bit more variable. And I think one of the detractions that people have, especially when you hear from, I don't know how many points league people you hear from, Dan, is like, well, category leagues don't represent, like, real basketball, because, why would I want to just be playing a guy just so I can get 2 steals out of him? Like, I see that. I see the validity to that, because that's not what basketball is. You don't just say, well, I can't wait to really go and get Matisse Thybulle because we really need to get 3 steals in this game. Like, that's not how any of that really works. And in this sort of a setting, that sort of does play that way because of the variability in those numbers.
Yeah, although I might be in the camp that says, do we need fantasy basketball to be the exact same as real basketball? I don't think it ever will.
We don't, no. No, we don't. I agree with that as well. We don't, but I do understand that point of, like, I don't, people will say, in a category league, if I sit there on the final day and we're just all rooting for to see if my guy gets 1 block or his guy gets 1 block and everything else they do doesn't matter. I sort of understand that point of view. Like, it's not about being the same as real life, but if you can get into the final day with 6 categories up for grabs because the volume is similar, that's way more engaging.
Did you find that, and I know I'm tying a lot of this into this whole games cap head-to-head element of things, but bringing it back to your original point, which was the flyer element, shoot for the upside. It feels like that would be even more important in a games cap format.
Yeah, I agree, because you've got that stashability. Now, we know that the number 1 fantasy game is football, and we know this. We know that is a games cap by the nature of the way that the league is played. We also know that their benches are much bigger than standard fantasy basketball benches. We know that a common theory in fantasy football is we'll handcuff the backup here, or we take a flyer on this guy and we sit him down and we'll see whether we're going to activate him. But let's be honest, in a head-to-head fantasy league, you might have 10 starters and 3 bench, but you don't. You have 13 starters because they all play every single time they're out there outside of 1 or 2 games. So you cannot hold a dead injured weight player. You can't hold a guy that maybe we'll see what happens in a month or 2. You can't do it. It's impossible to do.
No, you need production.
You just take 0. So it's not 10 starters and 3 bench. You have 13 players that you use every single game. So having the games cap, expanding the bench, enabled a bit more strategy. I could take, in the later rounds, maybe I will take a backup. Maybe if I'm drafted Damian Lillard, maybe I'll draft Cameron Payne, who was the backup at the start of the season, because if I get 10 games of him starting, maybe that's enough. And you can do that across, I'll take TJ McConnell, because what if Tyrese Halliburton gets hurt? And if someone did that, they probably would have had a bit of success in doing that. But that is not a strategy that has any validity whatsoever in a standard, unlimited, head-to-head weekly or daily format.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea. I know I've said that 1,000 times, but I love the idea. As a roto guy, I think games cap is a big helper. And I think I did a show where I said that before I switched feeds. Honestly, I don't remember. I really should have written down what shows I did. And I'm doing that now, but lesson learned over 7.5 very, very long years of forgetting to do it. I only said I was going to take like 20 to 25 minutes of your time. Can I get you back in a week or two to do your next lesson?
Yeah, mate, absolutely.
I had a feeling that we might go long on individual things. I have a problem with talking. You put two pod hosts on a show together and things tend to spiral out of control a little bit. Yeah. Well, anyway,
it does.
And there goes an earbud. Height of professionalism over here. Perfect. You know what? It's the off season. I don't have to do a super long show if I don't want to. Josh, thank you so much, my man. I'll talk to you super soon.
No worries, Danny. Thank you.
He is Josh Lloyd. He's RedRock_B-ball. Hey, actually, before you go, what you got cooking these days? It's the off season. Something special? Something
we special? Yeah, special. Sure. We are on the show. I'm just doing team review stuff and then draft prospect stuff. So coming out today is actually a draft prospect show on. Who's today? Bronny James and Zachary Ricochet, the two main guys in that one. And then tomorrow we've got Alex Sarr, Stefan Castle, and a bunch of other guys as well. So in the end, I think last year we covered about 60 prospects. We'll end up doing that this year as well. A bunch of mock drafts plus 15 teams deep into the season review stuff. Even my old butt knew 3 of the 4 names you just said. Which don't get too Dan. You're gonna love it. These are the big names. Yeah, but you're gonna love this draft because you're gonna be like, don't draft any of them, and it's going to be like, yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea. Maybe Alex Sarr, but even then he goes to Atlanta, and then there's still Capella there, and there's a Kongwu, and there's Johnson, and it's going to be interesting. You and I are going to have to do a show on what the hell's going on with the Atlanta Hawks at some point in the not too distant future. That's been a little bit frustrating and annoying. But I will actually let you go this time. You guys anybody that's listening right now in the dead of off season, you guys already know the great Josh Lloyd. But if you don't, if there's one of you, RedRock_B-ball. He is Josh Lloyd. Check him out on Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Thank you, my good man. Not a problem, Dan. That worked out okay, right? Sure. Yeah. Okay. Listen, I know I'm not all that tech savvy. I know that I've got a board with an old draft in the background here on my video stuff. But I think, by all accounts, that actually worked kind of all right. Welcome back to the tail end of the show. I want to remind everybody that's tuning in to please take a moment to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It is critical, imperative these days because this is a brand new feed. It's a brand new YouTube. It's a brand new everything. Every single little thing you guys do helps right now a lot. And I know I said that back on the old feed. It helped less on those because that feed was already built out. It was still actually extraordinarily useful. But right now, I need y'all. Most of you are continuing to watch this live on Twitter. I would kindly ask all of you that are watching live on Twitter to please go subscribe on one of the other feeds. You can find them all in the show description on any of the feeds. It's in my pinned tweet as well. So please do find those. iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you guys want to take it in. I will continue to try to do as many shows as I can with a video element. They won't all be there. I will also have other shows. They're going to be little specialty ones that I can pop in and pop off. And my kids are on summer break in like 2 weeks. That's going to really change how much time I have and when shows happen. And audio is just going to become easier at that point because I'll record little chunks and I can push them together. I'm not that quick on the video side. If I was, I would do it in all of those, but I'm not. So please subscribe to specifically one of the audio-only feeds, iTunes, Spotify, iHeart. Those are the easiest ones there. If you want a video feed, you can hit that up over at Old Man Squad on YouTube. I am at Dan Besbris on social media. Big fat thank you today to the great Josh Lloyd for popping on and talking a little late-round flyer action plus some baseball. Baseball was my first love. I don't play fantasy baseball all that competitively, but baseball as like a fan, that's the thing that I love. And so when I saw that Josh was getting into baseball because of his kid, that like really hit home with me. You guys know I post pictures of my oldest son doing Little League on social media all the time. So thought that was also kind of cool. He again is RedRock_B-ball on social. Back tomorrow, we'll be talking to Thunder Dan, my good buddy Dan Palio. That should be a lot of fun. We'll talk about again a season gone by, some of the stuff that Dan's going to be looking forward to as next season rolls around. We will have Smitty, Matt Smith, coming up on Friday's episode of the show. And I haven't, again, fully figured out how I'm going to
edit all these together. I think we might be able to go live with Thunder Dan tomorrow. Matt and I, however, are going to be recording at a weird evening time, so that'll probably be kind of edited together with chunks like I did with this one. But either way, I do appreciate you guys taking it in. However you guys take in the show is very nice, except for Twitter long term. I'll continue to... Sorry, Twitter. I know you're great for doing these little snippets, but for power boosting a podcast, you are still not the greatest. I am Dan Vespers. This is Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. We'll see you again tomorrow.